Hey everybody, Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich here, taking a look at the setup for some strong storms in the Carolinas on Wednesday. Unfortunately, we've seen some big severe weather in Texas. Today, it's going to be Louisiana, parts of Mississippi, maybe even Alabama. Let me show you the system, and you can see even at this early morning hour, we've got tornado watches up for the Gulf Coast. That includes parts of Louisiana, into southeast Texas. Now I'm going to pause this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to throw up the severe weather outlooks for today. We'll throw that severe weather outlook today, and you can see that area in red. That's the area of greatest concern. That's where we're expecting to see severe weather. You see the rotating area. We call that a hatched area. That's a significant threat for tornadoes or severe weather. So that's the threat today. Tomorrow, this threat begins to shift to the east. Now, there's still some uncertainty about how much of this is going to maintain itself. It certainly does not look as strong as what we're seeing to our southwest. Just the same, it's a potent system. It is going to bring the potential for some strong storms. And then we go into Thursday, as the front exits the coast, you could see there will be a low-end risk along coastal sections. So let's get right to the setup with this. As we look at the setup, basically what we have is low pressure up here in the upper levels of the atmosphere and a really strong mid-level jet stream. But at the surface, we're getting this warm, humid air coming in from the south. That is like the ideal setup for tornadoes, unfortunately. It is not what you want to see on the map. So let me show you real quickly the dew points, because the dew points are going to be a big part of this, because dew points, remember, actually feed these systems with warm, low-level flow. And you can see the dew points down here in the 60s and 70s. So if you're in the Carolinas or points east, you really want to watch, where does this 60-degree dew point line move? As it moves north, that means there's plenty of fuel, because I think the whole area is going to have tons of that wind energy. That's not going to be lacking in this setup. What's going to be lacking, if anything, is going to be that low-level fuel. So let me turn on those dew points, and you see where the surge of moisture is there, pretty much right where the severe weather risk is. So think of the moisture as the fuel, the gasoline for thunderstorms. And the upper level winds are what's causing the rotation. If you put those two together, you end up with some severe storms. So let's start breaking this down on the futurecast. All right, so let's look at the futurecast. We're seeing this morning, pretty nasty, what we call QLCS. It's like a squiggly squall line. That's a great alliteration. But when you have squiggles in it, not only do you get strong winds, but every little kink and apex in the squiggle, you can get rotation in the storm. These are really tough tornadoes to warn for. And then you got to watch ahead of the line. If you get any individual storms, you can get supercells, which cause rotation. So you got two kind of threats with this system as it moves through Louisiana and Mississippi today. As we go through time, there are some signals that this will weaken a little bit overnight, and that's good news. And there's also a slight hint that there might be some rain ahead of the system early on Wednesday. So look at the time up there, the model time. I'll show you 5:30 in the morning. If there are some showers and clouds early, what does that do? That cools the low levels down. It squashes the fuel or the gasoline for these storms. But often in these cases, the wind energy is so intense, it can make up for the lack of fuel. If you think about, severe weather's two parts. It's shear and fuel. You like to have equal parts for severe weather, but if you have less of one and double of the other, they still kind of end up equaling each other out and having enough energy for severe weather. We call these kind of things called low cape, high shear events, and we get them a lot in the Carolinas. So by the middle of the day, it's real messy. It looks like there's some showers, which could help squash the thunderstorm development from being severe. And this is why I'm not as concerned with our severe weather risk as I would be to the southwest, and why this is not the exact same system that we saw in Texas or we're seeing in Louisiana and Mississippi today. But as we go into the afternoon, we're likely going to see some heating of the day, even through the clouds. You get a thin veil of clouds, and it does look like some storms try to develop. But I'll be honest with you, I think the ones that are more concerning to ones to watch, we'd be down in this area, because that'll have much more fuel. That's kind of along the warm front. So we go into late tomorrow night, and you can see the storms kind of building up. So I actually think, tomorrow night might be more of a problem as the storms kind of regenerate along the cold front and then push off to the east. And again, we're not so much concerned with these storms right here. This is just good old-fashioned rain. It's really this batch of rain here, and that's why you see that low risk along the coast. So let's back up. You can see they kind of start southeast of Charlotte and then move towards I-95 and the coast during Thursday. And then we might wake up to rain on Thursday before it completely gets out of the region. So what's the energy for this? Well, let's look at a couple parameters. One I look at is called shear, and it's basically called the energy Helicity index. It takes shear and that low-level fuel. Look over the Carolinas. You could see tomorrow there is some energy there. Let's look at that significant tornado parameter. I'm always looking at this because this will show me if we have ingredients for tornadoes. And if you look again, right around Wednesday evening, 8 o'clock, so really evening hours when the biggest threat is, you see that we've got some there. And again, the scale down here, is on a scale from 0 to 10 basically. And you're starting to see some 1 and 2s in there. So the timing there is there as well. And then let's look at those Helicity updraft tracks, basically rotating storms. This is interesting because I don't look for where the specific tracks are. I just look to see how intense and how many there are. And if you look, there's a little batch right in there. Obviously with my white telestrator, that didn't do too well. Let's change it to yellow here. So you could see in here, there's some faint ones. So not a real strong sign of tornadic storms. What this is telling me is we've got a pretty good wind and rain threat with this system as it moves through, but we still got to watch the potential for an isolated tornado. So let me loop this whole thing a couple times, and you can see how we're probably going to get fairly lucky that this thing will weaken enough that we'll see a lower risk over the Carolinas, but that risk is not zero. And it's a good idea to stay weather aware on Wednesday, even though the risk isn't as strong as we're seeing to the west of us. There's a real good reason when you look at this severe weather outlook here, you could see that we've only got a low to medium risk over the Carolinas and not the high and very high risk that we saw in parts of Texas or Louisiana. Of course, I'll have you covered over the next 24 hours. Stay weather aware and stay tuned for updates as we get closer to Wednesday.